and with an E?
No, I don't. But I might have something a little better. Come here. Check this out.
No. This looks dumb.
But it's got everything you want. A pretty girl, a bad guy, a hero, and machine guns.
I didn't say anything about machine guns.
It's $1. Hello, internet fans, and welcome to 3B Video. I'm your host, Rottin Roger DeMarco, and today we're going to be talking about Jim Wynorski's 1989 film, Return of the Swamp Thing. Yes! Okay, so here is your plot synopsis. Alec Holland, the Swamp Thing, is picking up where he left off at the end of the first film. He's still after Dr. Arcane, and Dr. Arcane and his legion of henchmen are hunting down the Swamp Thing and trying to kill him, all while doing weird experiments and trying to create some sort of serum that will keep Dr. Arcane from mutating and dying. And it's science stuff I wouldn't expect you to understand. Science things are happening, and the Swamp Thing's got to stop the science things. That's pretty much it. But before we get into my overall thoughts of the film, first, let's take a look at
Rottin Roger's Splatter Facts.
We have 12 dead bodies. We have 0 titties. This is a PG-13 horror film. Horror action film. So no boobies. Sorry. We have numerous monster brawls. We have one mansion patrolled by henchmen. We have inept police officers. We have 2 pervy little kids. We have station wagon smashing. We have gratuitous orange jumpsuits. We have rapey rednecks. We have swamp sex. We have medical accuracy. It's one of my favorites. And we have sensual scar sharing. Ooh, baby. The methods of death include but are not limited to gunshot. Plain and simple, keeping it classy as always. Extermination, off-screen, you son of a bitch, and grenade. Yeah. Okay, so now on to my overall thoughts of this film. Guys, I think that this is a perfect gateway horror film for the younger audience. Despite the fact that there is monster sex, Swamp Thing sex, that's alluded to but not shown. But as an adult, you understand what's happening. So you get some really cool creature designs that are very creepy, some very scary monsters, but then you also have the Swamp Thing as this super buff hero monster, kind of saving the day all the time. So it works good for kids because it's not going to scare them too bad. They have a hero on screen stopping all of the bad guys. And it's perfect, again, for kids because the acting is so over the top and ridiculous and fun. It's not going to be taken seriously. It's not going to win awards. This is on par with something like Monster Squad or somewhere in that neighborhood of Howard the Duck. It's right in between like a super great movie and an overly campy B movie. It's just somewhere in the middle. And that works great for kids because they can just have a good time with it. And that is also, I think, why I gravitate towards it so much, is because it's just a silly, fun Saturday movie that does a very good job of capturing that comic book essence, all while being a fun, engaging monster movie that you don't have to tie to a comic book. And you don't necessarily need to see the first Swamp Thing to understand what's happening in Return of Swamp Thing. This does maintain this popcorn atmosphere throughout and does improve on the formula that Wes Craven attempted to create in the first film. Don't get me wrong, I love the original Swamp Thing, but this is how you do it right. This is so silly and gooey and slimy and ridiculous henchman tropes and all of those 80s bad guys from action movies. They're all present in this movie. And you just have, instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger beating them to death, you have a swamp monster. And so it fits perfect in the vein of like a Commando type of film. And the name Jim Wynorski might sound familiar to some of you. He's very well known for making some of these schlocky B movies. He has credits out the wazoo. Films that you might know are Chopping Mall, Sorority House Massacre 2, and the lesser known, slightly forgotten 976 Evil 2 with Michael Ironside, Buck Flower. You know, he makes these really fun, campy movies. I think only a director like him could have made this as much fun. I do have to say that the opening credits of this film, the first 5 minutes of this film, will suck you in, and I think that the title card and the credit sequence has genius use of Born on the Bayou by CCR. And that's just one of those things that is like, had they put any other song on those credits, I don't know that it would have sucked you in. But as soon as they start showing these comic book pages and they're playing that song, you kind of get the feel. You know exactly what you're in for. So Heather Locklear plays Dr. Arcane's stepdaughter, and she wants to confront her stepfather about the death of her mother. So she goes to visit Dr. Arcane at the same time that Swamp Thing is planning his attack. And Heather Locklear was a relatively new actress, shall we say. She's a little green, no pun intended. She gets green later, if you know what I'm saying. She's a little rough around the edges, but she's very pretty. She's a very pretty woman in peril, and that's what we need in these superhero-esque action films. And it just so happens that she is a botanist of some sort. She has a flower shop and she talks to her plants, and she loves plants. Hates men, loves plants. So you can see where this is going. She's gonna fall in love with the giant lump of swamp muck. She's gonna fornicate with the swamp man. And that's an interesting scene, to say the least. But there is tons of monster action in this movie, which will satisfy everyone from the littlest kid in your family to the super stingy adult in the family. This movie has something for everyone, where everyone can kind of sit around and laugh about this movie. Is it great? No. But is it going to entertain you for an hour and a half? And is it going to be fun? Yes. There's a lot of things in this movie with over-the-top acting and ridiculous tropes that you start to pick out, like Dr. Arcane's mansion, which is fine. He's a scientist. He's out here conducting experiments. But there are armed henchmen in these orange jumpsuits just walking back and forth. There's a scene later in the film when Swamp Thing attacks, and the framing on this widescreen release is done so well that you can see these henchmen, extras, running from one end of the frame, stopping for a second, and then sprinting back the other direction. They're literally just trying to sprint in and out of frame with these guns and look like they're searching for Swamp Thing. But it's all in camera, and that adds to the charm of this movie, of just a ridiculous action monster movie that is so close to being perfect. It's everything you could want. I swear, I've never had so much fun with a monster movie. It truly does feel like a Saturday morning cartoon brought to life, which is obvious because it is adapted from a comic book. And they do a very good job of staying true to that base throughout the film. It has very bright, over-the-top color. It's excellent and makes you really feel like you're just reading the pages of a comic book or watching a cartoon on your TV. There's some really good fire stunts and some awesome action sequences in this movie with a lot of gunfire and fist fights and things like that that don't need a ridiculous amount of fight choreography, but they look like $1 million. This movie looks like it has a big budget, even though it doesn't. And it gives it this visual flair that separates it from the original film. And we get one of my all-time favorite action movie tropes where they use the action hero's love interest as bait to get the action hero to come set foot into their trap. Very James Bond-esque plot devices being used in this film. And it does. It feels very much like a James Bond movie, like a cartoon, like a comic book. It has all of these weird vibes put together, and that's what makes it so much fun for me. I can't sell you this movie much harder. I really like this movie, and I think that everyone needs to see it because it's just too much fun to be ignored. And in my personal opinion, this movie is 100% popcorn as fuck. Because who doesn't want to feel like a 9-year-old kid reading a comic book or watching a cartoon on a Saturday morning? We all do. We all love it. It's that piece of us that we don't want to let go and that we don't want to forget existed. If I have swayed you to check out Return of Swamp Thing, click the link in the description and get a copy for you today. But I suppose I should probably get going because, after all, there's a lot of movies out there to watch. And somebody's got to watch them, so why not me? Right? Get out of here, kid. You bother me.